Atomic Habits. My story. On the last day of my sophomore year, I was struck in the face by a baseball bat that slipped from a classmate's hands, hitting me between the eyes. I don't remember the moment of impact, but the blow crushed my nose, fractured my skull, and shattered both eye sockets. Dazed and bleeding, I was helped by classmates and walked slowly to the nurse's office, unaware of how serious my injuries were. I answered basic questions incorrectly and couldn't immediately recall my own mother's name. That's the last thing I remember before losing consciousness. As my condition rapidly worsened, I was rushed to a local hospital where I had my first seizure and stopped breathing. Unable to treat me properly, doctors arranged for a helicopter to fly me to a larger hospital in Cincinnati. My mom flew with me, holding my hand while my dad went home to inform my siblings and missed my sister's graduation. When we landed, a team of medical staff took over. Due to swelling and repeated seizures, I was placed in a medically induced coma. My parents, who had once been in that same hospital for my sister's leukemia treatment a decade earlier, were devastated to be back under such circumstances. As machines kept me alive through the night, a priest, ironically, the same one from my sister's illness, came to comfort them. My mom would later call it one of the worst nights of her life. My recovery. Thankfully, the next morning, my breathing improved enough for doctors to bring me out of the coma. When I woke up, I realized I couldn't smell anything. A nurse asked me to blow my nose and sniff an apple juice box, which brought my sense of smell back, but also pushed my left eye outward due to fractures near the socket. My eyeball bulged unnaturally, but the ophthalmologist said it would slowly return as trapped air escaped. A week later, I was cleared to go home, even though I looked battered and had several facial fractures. The months that followed were incredibly tough. I had double vision and couldn't drive for 8 months. At physical therapy, I had to relearn basic movements like walking straight. Though I tried to stay positive, I often felt defeated. Returning to baseball a year later, something I had always loved and dreamed of playing professionally like my dad, was painful. I was cut from the varsity team and sent to junior varsity, which felt humiliating after so many years in the sport. I cried in my car that day, trying to find comfort in music. As a senior, I made varsity but barely played, just 11 innings total. Still, I held on to the belief that I could become great, and I knew it was up to me to make that happen. My real turning point came when I started college at Denison University, where I first began to understand the power of small habits. How I learned about habits going to Denison turned out to be one of the best choices I ever made. I joined the baseball team as a freshman, even though I started at the bottom. After all the setbacks in high school, becoming a college athlete felt like a huge win. Since I wasn't going to be playing much, I focused on getting my life together. Sleeping early, keeping my dorm room organized, and slowly rebuilding my confidence. These small changes helped me develop better study habits, and I finished my first year with straight A's. Over time, I began understanding the power of habits, small routines done consistently. I added strength training to my routine, and my body changed significantly over the next few years. By sophomore year, I earned a spot in the pitching rotation. In junior year, I was named team captain and made the all-conference team. But it was in my senior year that the long-term impact of my habits became clear. 6 years after my injury, I was named Denison's top male athlete, made the ESPN Academic All-America team, and received the school's highest academic honor, the President's Medal. I say all this not to brag, but to show that I fulfilled my potential, which I think is just as meaningful as a professional career. That journey taught me that small, consistent changes though they may seem minor, can lead to extraordinary results over time. Life will always bring setbacks, but the quality of our habits largely determines the quality of our outcomes. There was no single breakthrough moment, just many small steps. That same mindset helped me later when I launched my business and began writing this book. How and why I wrote this book. In November 2012, I started publishing articles on jamesclear.com, drawing from years of personal notes and experiments with habits. I committed to posting every Monday and Thursday, and within a few months, I had my first 1,000 email subscribers. By the end of 2013, that number had grown to over 30,000. In 2014, my list surpassed 100,000, making it one of the fastest growing newsletters online. Though I initially felt like an imposter, I was slowly being recognized as a habits expert, a title that excited but also unsettled me. I never saw myself as a master, just someone learning alongside my readers. In 2015, I hit 200,000 subscribers and signed a book deal with Penguin Random House to begin writing this book. As my audience grew, I started receiving speaking invitations from top companies to talk about behavior change and habit formation. In 2016, my work was featured in publications like Time, Forbes, and Entrepreneur, and was read by over 8 million people. Coaches from professional sports leagues began sharing my articles with their teams. In early 2017, I launched the Habits Academy, a training platform for individuals and companies to build better habits. More than 10,000 professionals have gone through the program, and my work with them has taught me a great deal about how habits function in real life. By 2018, as I finalized this book, my site was drawing millions of visitors monthly, and my newsletter had grown to nearly 500,000 subscribers, far beyond anything I imagined when I first began. How this book will benefit you. Naval Ravikant once said, "To write a great book, you must first become the book." And that resonates with me deeply. I had to live the ideas in this book before I could write them. I use small habits to recover from injury, grow stronger, perform well, become a writer, build a business, and mature into adulthood. These habits helped me fulfill my potential, and I hope they can help you do the same. In the chapters ahead, I'll lay out a step-by-step plan to build better habits that last a lifetime, not just for a few days or weeks. Though this book is grounded in science, it's not an academic paper. Think of it as an operating manual, practical, clear, and actionable. The insights I share come from biology, neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and more. My goal is to synthesize the most useful ideas into something you can apply. Credit for the smart ideas goes to the many brilliant people who came before me. Any flaws are my own. At the heart of this book is my 4-step habit model: cue, craving, response, and reward, and the 4 laws of behavior change that emerge from it. While similar to models from B.F. Skinner and Charles Duhigg, mine includes the impact of internal thoughts and emotions, which are crucial to understanding human behavior. This model combines cognitive and behavioral science in a way that captures both external triggers and internal experiences. Even though the language might feel familiar, I believe the insights and applications you'll find here offer a fresh perspective. Human behavior shifts constantly, but this book is about the core principles that don't change. Foundational truths you can build a life, a business, or a family around. There's no single path to creating better habits, but what I offer here is the most effective method I know, one that works no matter where you're starting or what you want to improve. If human behavior is involved, this book can help. Chapter 1: The fundamentals why tiny changes make a big difference. The surprising power of atomic habits. In 2003, Dave Brailsford was appointed as the performance director of British Cycling, an organization with a long history of underperformance. Since 1908, British cyclists had only won one Olympic gold and had never won the Tour de France. Brailsford's strategy, the aggregation of marginal gains, focused on making tiny improvements across all aspects of cycling. His idea was that improving every detail by 1% would lead to significant overall gains. Brailsford's team implemented small but effective changes. They redesigned bike seats, improved tire grip, used biofeedback sensors, and even tested different fabrics in wind tunnels for better aerodynamics. They went beyond the obvious and worked on improving recovery techniques, sleep quality, and even the cleanliness of their equipment. For example, they painted the inside of the team truck white to easily spot dust that could affect bike performance. The results were transformative. In just 5 years, British cycling dominated the 2008 Olympic Games, winning 60% of the gold medals. Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France in 2012, and Chris Froome followed with 4 wins. Between 2007 and 2017, British cyclists amassed 178 world championships, 66 Olympic gold medals, and 5 Tour de France victories. Why small habits make a big difference? James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, explains that small habits, though seemingly insignificant on their own, have a profound impact over time. This principle is based on the idea of the aggregation of marginal gains, which is the concept that if you make tiny improvements in many areas of your life by just 1% each time, these small changes compound and result in remarkable overall progress. The key idea is that even the smallest habits, repeated consistently over time, add up to massive results. For example, if you improve your exercise routine by just 1% every day, or write a few sentences each day for a writing project, it might seem like these actions don't make much difference on any single day. However, over the course of weeks, months, or years, they compound and produce remarkable results. This idea of compounding habits is akin to how compound interest works in finance. Small, consistent investments grow exponentially over time. Clear also emphasizes the power of consistency. Habits that are repeated consistently, no matter how small, reinforce each other and build momentum. The more you engage in positive habits, the more they become ingrained in your routine, eventually becoming part of your identity. So, a small habit, like reading for just 10 minutes a day, can result in reading several books per year, eventually turning you into a regular reader. Forget about goals. Focus on systems instead. Clear stresses the importance of focusing on systems rather than just goals. Goals are the specific results you want to achieve. For example, losing 10 pounds, writing a book, or getting a promotion. But systems are the continuous processes or habits that will lead you to those results. For example, if your goal is to lose weight, your system would involve daily habits such as eating healthy, exercising, and tracking your progress. While goals are important to give you direction and motivation, systems are what produce continuous sustainable progress. Goals are finite, they are achieved and then completed. But systems are ongoing and focus on long-term improvement. When you focus on the system, you align your daily actions with the results you want to achieve. This shift in focus from goals to systems is crucial because systems are what you can control. While goals are often about the outcome, systems are about the process. By focusing on systems, You commit to the process of becoming better every day, which leads to eventual success. As Clear puts it, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. A system of atomic habits. The heart of atomic habits lies in the concept of atomic habits. Small, incremental changes that can lead to significant long-term improvements. Clear presents a 4-step process to understand how habits work and how to build better ones. 1. Cue. This is the trigger that initiates the habit. It could be an environmental cue, like seeing your workout shoes by the door, a time of day, or a particular emotion. This is the moment when you decide to perform a specific habit. 2. Craving. After the cue, there's a craving or desire to perform the behavior. This is the motivation that makes you want to engage in the habit. For example, the craving for the feeling of accomplishment or the energy boost from exercise. 3. Response. This is the actual behavior or action you take to satisfy the craving. In this case, it's the act of exercising or engaging in the habit you're trying to establish. Reward. After completing the habit, you experience a reward, which could be a feeling of satisfaction, pleasure, or even relief. The reward is the benefit that reinforces the behavior, making it more likely that you'll repeat it in the future. This 4-step process, when understood and applied correctly, can help you design habits that align with your goals. By manipulating one or more of these steps, you can make habits more effective and build systems that support long-term success. How to make small habits work for you. One of the most powerful ideas Clear presents is the idea of making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. These are the 4 laws of behavior change that make it easier to form good habits and break bad ones. 1. Make it obvious. Design your environment in a way that cues the right habits. For example, if you want to eat healthier, keep healthy snacks within easy reach and remove junk food from your house. 2. Make it attractive. Pair habits with things you enjoy. For instance, listen to your favorite podcast only when you're exercising. This makes the habit more enjoyable and easier to stick with. 3. Make it easy. Reduce friction by making the habit as easy as possible. If you want to read more, keep a book next to your bed so you don't have to look for it. If your goal is to exercise, start with just 5 minutes a day, so it's easy to get started. Make it satisfying. Use rewards to reinforce your habit. Celebrate small wins to create positive feedback loops. For example, after a week of consistently following your habit, treat yourself to something you enjoy, like watching a favorite show. By focusing on systems and atomic habits, you can make small, consistent changes that lead to big transformations over time. This approach helps you move away from obsessing over big, distant goals and instead focuses on daily actions that consistently improve over time, making success inevitable. How your habits shape your identity and vice versa. Building good habits is hard, and breaking bad ones is easy because we often try to change the wrong thing or use the wrong method. Good habits like exercising or meditating usually fade after a few days, while bad habits like eating junk food or procrastinating stick around. James Clear explains that habit change happens at 3 levels: outcomes, results, processes, habits, and most importantly, identity, how you see yourself. True change happens when you focus on becoming the kind of person you want to be, not just setting goals. The 3 layers of behavior change. Behavior change can be understood through 3 layers: outcome, process, and identity. Outcome. results. The outer layer of behavior change is focused on the results you want to achieve. These are the tangible, measurable goals like losing weight, writing a book, or earning a promotion. Process, habits. The middle layer is about the habits and systems you create to reach your desired outcomes. It's the consistent, repeated behaviors that lead to results. Identity, beliefs. The deepest layer is your identity, which shapes how you view yourself and the world. This is the fundamental driver of all behaviors. People often focus on outcomes and processes, but fail to address their identity. When you change your identity, the results will naturally follow because your actions will align with who you believe you are. The two-step process to changing your identity. The process to change your identity consists of 2 steps. 1. Decide the type of person you want to be. Instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, think about who you want to become. For example, if you want to exercise more, ask yourself, what kind of person does regular exercise? The answer is someone who values health and fitness. 2. Proof of identity. Start by aligning small actions with the type of person you want to become. Every action you take is proof of the identity you are building. When you take the first step toward becoming a healthier person, whether it's by exercising, eating healthier, or prioritizing sleep, you reinforce your identity as a healthy person. The real reason. Habits matter. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. They may seem small and insignificant at first, but over time, their effects accumulate, leading to big changes. The true power of habits lies not in the outcomes they bring, but in the identity they help to create. Every habit you form strengthens the belief about who you are, and that belief becomes the foundation for your future actions. For example, someone who writes daily will come to see themselves as a writer. Someone who works out regularly will see themselves as a fit person. The small, repeated actions are what shape your identity, and it's this identity that influences everything else in your life. The real reason habits matter is that they shape your identity. By focusing on the process of building good habits, you can slowly and steadily shift your identity, which then leads to the desired outcomes. The key takeaway is that if you want to change your results, you must first change your identity, and this starts with small, consistent habits that align with the person you want to become. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. In 1898, psychologist Edward Thorndike conducted groundbreaking experiments with cats to study how habits are formed. He placed cats inside a puzzle box where they had to perform a simple action, like pulling a cord or pressing a lever, to escape and reach a bowl of food. At first, the cats acted randomly, trying various movements to get out. However, once a cat accidentally triggered the mechanism and escaped, it started to associate that specific action with a reward. Over repeated trials, the cats became faster and more efficient, escaping in just a few seconds instead of minutes. Thorndike observed that with practice, the cats made fewer mistakes and their behavior became automatic. This led him to formulate the idea that behaviors followed by satisfying consequences are more likely to be repeated, while those followed by unpleasant outcomes are less likely. 1. This experiment laid the foundation for understanding how habits are formed. 2. When an action is rewarded, the brain remembers and reinforces it. 3. Over time, this repetition leads to automatic behavior. Thorndike's work answers key questions like what habits are and why the brain builds them. To save time and energy, by automating solutions that have been proven to work. Why your brain builds habits. Our brains are constantly looking for ways to conserve energy and be more efficient. One way they do this is by creating habits, automatic responses to situations we've encountered before. When a behavior is repeated often enough, the brain learns it and stores it in the subconscious. This allows us to free up mental energy for new tasks while still functioning effectively in daily life. Habits evolved as survival mechanisms. By forming predictable patterns, our ancestors could act quickly without having to think each time. This is why habits feel effortless. They're the brain's way of automating common actions to make life easier and more manageable. The science of how habits work. Habits are created in the brain through a process called chunking, where several actions become linked together and repeated automatically. The basal ganglia, a part of the brain responsible for emotions, memories, and pattern recognition, plays a key role in forming habits. When we first try something new, our brain is actively engaged. But as we repeat the behavior, it becomes more automatic and shifts to habit mode. This shift allows us to perform complex tasks like driving or typing without needing full concentration. This scientific process explains how repeated actions become habits and why breaking them requires conscious effort and awareness. The habit loop. Every habit follows a loop that includes 4 key steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior. The craving is the motivational force behind the habit, our desire for a change in state. The response is the actual habit or action we perform, and the reward is the benefit we gain, which reinforces the behavior. For example, if you're stressed, cue, you may crave relaxation, craving, scroll through your phone, response, and feel briefly distracted or better, reward. This loop repeats itself, strengthening the habit each time. Understanding this loop is crucial to creating good habits and breaking bad ones. The 4 laws of behavior change. James Clear outlines 4 rules that help form better habits and break bad ones. They are: make it obvious. Design your environment to clearly cue the desired habit. 2. Make it attractive. Pair habits with something you enjoy or find rewarding. 3. Make it easy. Reduce friction by starting small and keeping it simple. 4. Make it satisfying. Reinforce the behavior with a positive feeling or immediate reward. These laws are rooted in human psychology and behavioral science. By applying them intentionally, you can reshape your habits more effectively and build long-term change. Chapter 2. The first law, make it obvious. The man who didn't look right. Psychologist Gary Klein once shared a story about a paramedic who, upon arriving at a family gathering, immediately told her father-in-law he needed to go to the hospital. Though he felt fine, she noticed something was wrong. Hours later, he underwent life-saving surgery for a blocked artery. She couldn't explain what tipped her off, but her experience had trained her brain to spot danger signals unconsciously. Similar stories exist across fields. Military analysts, art curators, and radiologists often recognize subtle signs that others miss. With repetition, the brain learns to filter what matters and spot patterns, even without conscious effort. We continuously gather cues from our environment, and the brain processes them automatically, building habits through experience. Our bodies function largely on autopilot. We don't consciously command our heartbeats or digestion. Similarly, hunger emerges from internal feedback systems. Often, we act on cues without realizing it. This automatic nature makes habits powerful but also risky. Once a behavior is ingrained, it can repeat without awareness, like a clerk cutting a real credit card out of habit or a former teacher reminding adults to wash their hands. Over time, cues become so familiar we don't even notice them, like the phone in our pocket or snacks on the counter. Our responses feel instinctive. That's why the first step in changing habits is awareness. Before we can build better ones, we need to recognize the ones we already have. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The habit scorecard. One of the most effective ways to begin changing your habits is to become aware of them. A simple method called the habit scorecard helps you do that. The process is straightforward. You go through your day and write down everything you do, from waking up to going to bed. Once the list is complete, you mark each behavior as positive, negative, or neutral, based on whether it helps or hurts you. This system isn't about judging yourself. It's about noticing what's actually happening. Many of our habits happen automatically, so we often don't even realize we're doing them. The scorecard makes these patterns visible. It lets you observe your behavior with clarity, without the fog of emotion or guilt. For example, you might find that you check your phone the moment you wake up or snack late at night without realizing how routine it's become. Labeling habits as helpful or harmful starts a process of self-awareness, which is crucial for change. You can't improve a habit if you don't know it exists. The best way to start a new habit. Starting a habit is less about motivation and more about clarity. Most people fail because they set vague intentions like, I want to eat healthier, instead of defining exactly when and where the habit will happen. Successful habits begin with implementation intentions. A specific plan like, I will walk for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in the park. This removes ambiguity and primes your brain to act when the moment comes. Research shows that people with clear plans are far more likely to follow through because their minds aren't stuck in decision-making mode. They've already chosen when to act. This clarity turns intentions into action, helping habits stick more naturally over time. Habit stacking. The power of habit stacking lies in creating a chain of behaviors that naturally follow one another. You take advantage of the momentum from one habit to trigger the next. The key is to choose habits that logically fit together. If your morning routine ends with brushing your teeth, you can stack a new habit, like taking a vitamin immediately after. Over time, these stacked routines feel automatic, and you no longer have to think much about them. This layering makes habit building smoother because the brain already understands the rhythm and flow. Instead of forcing change, you glide into it by building on what already exists. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. We tend to overemphasize motivation and willpower when it comes to change, but the environment around us plays a much greater role. A person's behavior is often shaped more by their surroundings than by their determination. When habits are easy to do and cues are clearly visible, people are more likely to act. If unhealthy snacks are in view, we eat them. If workout clothes are laid out, we're more likely to exercise. Instead of waiting to feel motivated, we should focus on making the environment work for us. By adjusting what we see and interact with daily, we can guide our actions without needing constant self-control. Before and after. Your surroundings can shape your behavior so deeply that making even minor adjustments can lead to significant habit change. Before, you might have kept junk food on the kitchen counter and struggled to eat healthy. After, simply removing the snacks and replacing them with fruit increases your chances of making better choices. Visual cues influence decisions more than we realize. By modifying the layout of your home workspace, or digital environment, you create a setting that encourages the right habits. These small shifts don't require motivation, just smart design. When your environment changes, your behavior naturally follows. How to design your environment for success? To build better habits, you need to redesign your spaces so they encourage the behavior you want. This means making the cues of good habits obvious and reducing the exposure to bad ones. For example, if you want to read more, put a book on your pillow. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it and hide the remote. Every habit is tied to a cue, and our surroundings are full of them. The key is to make good habits more convenient and bad ones more difficult. By structuring the environment in your favor, you let it nudge you towards success automatically. The context is the cue. Your brain links habits not just to actions, but to the environment in which they occur. That's why the same behavior can feel automatic in one setting, but forgotten in another. If you always check your phone in bed, then being in bed itself becomes the cue. Over time, places, people, and time of day become associated with specific behaviors. This is why it's easier to build a new habit in a new environment. There are no existing associations to interfere. Understanding that context drives habit cues helps you reshape your spaces and routines to reinforce the habits you want. The secret to self-control. Most people believe that self-control is about strong willpower and resisting temptation in the moment. However, research and experience show that the most effective way to master self-control is by avoiding tempting situations altogether. Once a habit starts, it's incredibly difficult to stop, no matter how much willpower you have. The people with the most self-control are often the ones who need to use it the least because they structure their environment in a way that prevents temptation from arising. For instance, if you're trying to eat healthier, the key isn't to resist cookies on the counter. It's to never have them there in the first place. If you want to focus more, put your phone in another room while you work. Self-control becomes much easier when you eliminate the cues that lead to bad habits. True behavior change doesn't rely on heroic effort, but on smart choices about your surroundings. By reshaping the environment, you reduce the number of decisions you need to make. And that makes good habits easier and bad habits harder. Ultimately, the secret to self-control is not about saying no more often, but about having to say it less. Chapter 3. The second law. Make it attractive. How to make a habit irresistible. To build better habits, it's crucial to make them attractive. The more appealing a behavior is, the more likely you are to repeat. Habits become irresistible when they're associated with positive feelings and emotions. One way to do this is by highlighting the benefits and making the experience enjoyable. Our habits are influenced by the culture we live in. We tend to imitate the behaviors of those close to us, those in larger society, and those with status. When we see people we admire performing a habit, it becomes more desirable. So by surrounding yourself with people who practice your desired habits, you're more likely to adopt them yourself. Ultimately, making a habit irresistible comes down to associating it with pleasure and identity. When it feels rewarding and aligns with who you want to be, it pulls you in naturally. The dopamine-driven feedback loop. Dopamine plays a critical role in habit formation. It's not just released when we get a reward, but also when we anticipate it. This anticipation makes us crave certain behaviors and reinforces habits. When something promises a positive experience, our brain lights up before it even happens, pushing us to act. Over time, cues that signal a reward, like the smell of coffee or a phone notification, start triggering dopamine spikes. This loop Cue, craving, response, and reward is strengthened every time it repeats, making habits harder to break and easier to stick to. The key to building good habits is to link them with positive anticipation and enjoyment, so your brain learns to crave them in a healthy way. The dopamine spike. Dopamine spikes occur not from receiving a reward, but from expecting one. When you anticipate something pleasurable, like checking your phone for a message or eating a favorite snack, your brain releases dopamine, motivating you to act. This spike builds the craving that drives habits. If a behavior repeatedly leads to a reward, the brain starts releasing dopamine as soon as the associated cue appears. This mechanism explains why we form habits even when the rewards are small. The anticipation itself becomes enough to keep the habit going. Understanding this helps you hack your habits. If you can create strong positive anticipation for a good habit, you're more likely to follow through. How to use temptation. Bundling to make your habits more attractive. Temptation bundling is a strategy that links an action you want to do with one you need to do. For example, you can allow yourself to watch your favorite show, something you want, only while exercising, something you need. This approach makes the needed behavior more appealing by connecting it with an immediate reward. The method takes advantage of the dopamine-driven feedback loop by attaching instant gratification to a habit that might not be inherently enjoyable. As a result, you're more likely to stick with it. Over time, the habit becomes more automatic because your brain starts associating it with pleasure. It's a smart way to make difficult or boring habits easier to adopt. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. Your habits are often a reflection of the people around you. We tend to imitate the behavior of those closest to us, our family, friends, and peers, without always realizing it. James Clear emphasizes that if you want to build better habits, one of the most effective things you can do is to surround yourself with people who already practice those habits. Being part of a group where a certain behavior is normal reinforces your desire to conform and feel accepted. This happens because humans are wired for belonging. We are constantly influenced by our social environment, whether that means picking up your roommate's late-night snacking habit or adopting your partner's enthusiasm for exercise. The expectations and actions of the people closest to us often become the default setting of our own lives. Therefore, carefully choosing or shaping your social group can either empower or sabotage your personal growth. The seductive pull of social norms. We don't just follow habits randomly, we follow those that help us belong. Social approval is a powerful motivator. We're drawn to doing what others do because we want to feel accepted and avoid being left out. This is the seductive pull of social norms. When a habit is common in our group, it seems normal, even appealing. Our brains are wired to imitate the behaviors of those around us, especially in 3 ways. 1. We imitate the close. We copy the habits of those nearest to us. This includes family members, friends, and co-workers. The more emotionally connected we are to someone, the more likely we are to adopt their behavior. If your best friend is learning guitar, you might feel inspired to start too. We feel safe copying people we know and trust. 2. We imitate the many. When uncertain, we look to the group. This is the idea of social proof. If everyone at a dinner party is eating with chopsticks, you'll likely follow suit. Social norms signal what's acceptable or normal, and we instinctively follow them to blend in. The crowd doesn't just influence what we do, it shapes what we think is possible. 3. We imitate the powerful. We often mimic the habits of those we admire or view as successful. This includes celebrities, leaders, or anyone with status. We assume their success is linked to their habits and subconsciously think, if I do what they do, I might become like them. It could be mimicking their morning routine, diet, or productivity habits, even without fully understanding the reasoning behind them. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Bad habits are often symptoms, not the root problem. You overeat, scroll your phone endlessly, or snap at others. But these are reactions to something deeper. The real issue lies in the trigger or cue that starts the habit loop. James Clear emphasizes, to break a bad habit, you need to understand what leads to it. That means noticing the who, where, when, and why behind your actions. You might snack late at night, not because you're hungry, but because you feel lonely or bored. By becoming aware of these invisible patterns, you can interrupt them and make better choices. One powerful method is changing your environment. If you always eat chips when watching TV, move the snacks out of sight or swap them with something healthier. The key lesson: you must diagnose before you can cure. Awareness gives you the power to choose differently. Where cravings come from. Cravings are not about the habit itself. They're about the feeling or relief the habit promises. It's not the cigarette you crave, but the calm it gives you. It's not the TV show you crave, but the escape from your thoughts. James Clear explains that cravings arise from the brain's prediction of pleasure. The brain uses past experiences to predict future rewards. Over time, certain cues become linked with expectations, and your brain releases dopamine in anticipation, even before the habit starts. That's why just seeing your phone screen light up can make you feel excited. Clear outlines this process in a dopamine-driven feedback loop. 1. Cue. You see something associated with past pleasure, like a cookie or your phone. 2. Craving. Your brain remembers the reward and anticipates it. 3. Response. You act on the craving. Eat the cookie, check your phone. 4. Reward. You get pleasure or relief, reinforcing the habit. Cravings are learned through experience and shaped by the cues around us. If you can reshape what you associate with pleasure, you can reshape your habits. How to reprogram your brain to enjoy hard habits. Difficult habits, like exercising, reading, or saving money, don't feel good in the moment. That's why people avoid them. But James Clear explains that if you want these habits to last, you need to train your brain to like them. One method is to reframe the habit. Change how you think about it. For example, instead of saying, I have to work out, say, I'm becoming stronger and healthier. This shift helps your brain focus on the benefit, not just the effort. Another strategy is temptation bundling. Combine something hard with something enjoyable. For example, listen to your favorite music only when you're cleaning, or watch your favorite show only while doing cardio. This makes the habit experience rewarding right away. When you consistently reward yourself immediately after a hard habit, your brain starts associating the task with a positive feeling. Over time, this rewires your mind, making the habit more automatic and enjoyable. Chapter 4. The third law. Make it easy. Walk slowly, but never backward. The key to lasting habit change is not about making giant leaps forward, but about consistently moving in the right direction, even if your progress feels slow. It's more important to maintain steady forward momentum than to rush or push yourself too hard. Small incremental improvements compound over time, just like interest in a bank account. Even tiny positive actions, when repeated regularly, lead to meaningful transformation. What matters most is that you avoid slipping backward into old habits. This mindset helps prevent discouragement because progress is rarely linear. There will be ups and downs, but as long as you keep moving forward, you're building a foundation for lasting change. Consistency and patience are far more powerful than bursts of effort followed by inactivity. How long does it actually take to form a new habit? There is a popular belief that habits can be formed in 21 days, but scientific research tells a more nuanced story. The actual time to form a habit can vary greatly depending on the individual and the habit's complexity. Studies suggest it can take anywhere from about 18 days to over 250 days to fully automate a behavior. Habit formation follows a gradual process where initial progress may be slow and almost imperceptible. This slow progress often causes frustration or self-doubt, but it is a normal part of the journey. Missing a day or making mistakes doesn't mean failure. What matters is the overall trend toward consistency. The real goal is to keep showing up day after day, allowing your brain to gradually wire new automatic behaviors. Understanding this timeline encourages patience and long-term commitment rather than quick fixes. The habit line. The habit line represents how your progress develops over time when adopting a new habit. At first, improvement may be barely noticeable, which can be discouraging, but persistence leads to growing gains. This curve illustrates the importance of sticking to the habit through the initial slow phase before results become more obvious and satisfying. Walking 10 minutes per day. Walking for just 10 minutes daily is a simple yet powerful habit that can improve your health and increase your motivation to stay active. This small step lowers the barrier to entry and makes it easier to build momentum toward larger goals. Once walking 10 minutes becomes automatic, adding more physical activity or other healthy habits becomes easier, showing the impact of starting small. The law of least effort. Humans naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance. This principle, the law of least effort, means we tend to choose actions that require the least amount of work or friction. Our brain is wired to conserve energy. So when we face multiple options, we usually pick the easiest one. Understanding this helps explain why habits form so powerfully. Behaviors that are simpler and more convenient are far more likely to stick. The shape of human behavior. Most human behavior follows a curve shaped by this law. The easier a habit is to perform, the more likely we are to do it consistently. When habits require minimal effort, they demand less willpower, making it easier to repeat them. Conversely, if an action is complicated, inconvenient, or requires significant energy, it becomes harder to sustain, no matter how motivated we might be initially. So behavior naturally favors convenience and simplicity. How to achieve more with less effort? To build better habits with minimal effort, focus on designing your environment and routines to make desired behaviors easier and undesired ones harder. Simplifying your actions reduces friction and increases the likelihood that you'll follow through. For example, if you want to read more, keep a book on your nightstand instead of buried on a shelf. The easier you make the habit, the more effortless it feels to start and maintain. Prime the environment for future use. Another powerful strategy is to prime your environment to prepare you for future behaviors. This means setting up cues and tools ahead of time so that when the moment comes to act, the path is already smooth. For instance, If you plan to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. This removes barriers, reduces decision fatigue, and ensures the environment nudges you toward your goals. By proactively shaping your surroundings, you're harnessing the law of least effort to make good habits the natural and effortless choice. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. Procrastination often stems from the feeling that a task is too big, too complicated, or too time-consuming to start. The 2-minute rule is a powerful strategy to overcome this resistance by making the start of any habit incredibly simple and quick. Instead of aiming to complete the entire habit or task immediately, you break it down into a version that can be done in 2 minutes or less. This small step lowers the activation energy required to begin, making it easier to get going. Once you start, momentum naturally builds, often leading to completing more than just those first 2 minutes. Decisive moments. Every day, you encounter decisive moments. Those split seconds when you choose whether to act on a new habit or give in to old behaviors. These moments are critical because the decision to act or not sets the course for your habits. The 2-minute rule leverages these moments by reducing the friction involved in starting. When the initial step is easy enough to do in 2 minutes, it becomes much more likely that you will choose to begin the habit. By focusing on making the starting point simple and automatic, you make it easier to say yes during these decisive moments, creating a foundation for consistent behavior change. The 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule states, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. This means you should downscale your goals to the smallest possible action that signals the beginning of the habit. For example, instead of committing to reading a book every night, commit to reading 1 page. Instead of planning to work out for 30 minutes, start by putting on your workout clothes. These tiny actions feel so effortless that resistance fades and starting becomes automatic. The beauty of this rule is that the 2-minute version of the habit is usually easy to do and builds a sense of accomplishment, which motivates you to keep going. Over time, these small starts naturally evolve into longer, more involved routines, making the habit stick. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. Creating lasting change is less about relying on motivation or willpower and more about designing your life so that the right habits happen automatically. When you structure your environment and routines effectively, good habits become unavoidable and bad habits become much harder to perform. This reduces the mental effort required to make better choices, making your success almost effortless. The key idea is to remove unnecessary decisions and create systems that guide your behavior without you having to think about it. If good habits are easy and convenient, and bad habits are difficult or inconvenient, your brain naturally defaults to the path of least resistance. How to automate a habit and never think about it again. Automation of habits means building routines and environmental cues so deeply into your life that the habit occurs on autopilot without the need for motivation or deliberate effort. This frees up your mental energy and reduces the chance of failure. To automate habits effectively. 1. Design your environment to support your habits. Make cues for positive habits obvious and visible. For example, if you want to practice guitar, keep it in the middle of your living room, not tucked away in a closet. If you want to eat healthier, place fruits on the kitchen counter and remove junk food from sight. 2. Reduce friction for good habits by making them easier to do. Prepare your gym clothes the night before or pre-pack your lunch to avoid decision fatigue. Conversely, increase friction for bad habits by making them harder. For example, uninstall social media apps or keep unhealthy snacks out of the house. 3. Leverage technology and tools to support automation. Use calendar reminders, habit tracking apps, or subscription services to maintain consistency. When your habits are so automated that they require no conscious thought, they become part of your identity. You don't rely on willpower or motivation anymore because your environment and systems do the work for you. This is why habit automation is so powerful. It makes good behavior inevitable and bad behavior nearly impossible. In essence, automating habits is about setting up your life so that the right actions flow naturally and effortlessly, reducing the chance of slipping back into old patterns. When done correctly, you will find yourself living the life you want without constantly battling yourself. Chapter 5. The fourth law, make it satisfying. The cardinal rule of behavior change. The fundamental principle behind changing any behavior is that behaviors that are immediately rewarded tend to be repeated, while behaviors that are immediately punished tend to be avoided. Our brains are wired to seek instant gratification, which means we are naturally drawn to actions that provide quick pleasure or relief, and tend to avoid those that bring immediate discomfort, even if the long-term outcomes are beneficial. This explains why habits like exercising regularly, eating healthy, or saving money are so hard to build, because the rewards they provide are often delayed, while the effort or sacrifice happens right away. The mismatch between immediate and delayed rewards. One of the biggest obstacles to forming good habits is the timing mismatch between rewards and consequences. Most positive habits involve some upfront cost, discomfort, or effort, but their benefits only become visible after a long time. For instance, going to the gym might be exhausting and time-consuming today, but the health benefits will only show after months or years. Meanwhile, bad habits like scrolling social media or eating junk food deliver quick, pleasurable rewards that your brain craves instantly, even though they might harm you in the long run. Because our brains prioritize immediate outcomes, this disconnect between short-term pain and long-term gain often causes us to fall back into old, easier habits. How to turn instant gratification to your advantage. The key to successfully building good habits is to make the new behavior immediately satisfying, so your brain begins to crave the action right away, not just the delayed benefits. You can do this by creating instant rewards or positive feedback loops that encourage repetition of the habit. Some effective strategies include: 1. Pairing the habit with something you enjoy. For example, only allowing yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while exercising creates an immediate, positive association with working out. 2. Tracking your progress visually. Marking an X on a calendar for every day you complete the habit can provide a small but powerful sense of achievement, reinforcing your motivation. 3. Using temptation bundling. Combine a habit you want to build with an activity you like, making the process more enjoyable. Celebrating small wins. Even tiny rewards or acknowledging progress can create a dopamine spike, which motivates you to continue. By making the habit immediately rewarding, you align your brain's desire for instant gratification with positive behaviors. This reduces the internal conflict between what you want to do now and what will benefit you later, making it much easier to stick with new habits over time. How to stick with good habits every day. Consistency is the key to building lasting habits. While motivation can start the process, it's the system and routine that keep it going. The best way to stick with a habit is not to rely on willpower every day, but to make the habit so small and easy that you can do it even when you don't feel like it. The idea is to design habits that are sustainable and to focus more on showing up regularly rather than doing something huge. Success in habits is less about intensity and more about consistency. You just need to keep showing up, even if it's in a small way. The process becomes easier when the habit is tied to identity and done in an environment that supports the behavior. How to keep your habits on track. The most effective way to keep habits on track is by using habit tracking. It's a simple method, like crossing off a calendar day, that gives you visual proof of your progress. This visual feedback reinforces the behavior and gives you motivation to continue. Habit tracking also helps build momentum. Seeing a growing streak of successful days creates a desire to maintain the chain. Additionally, tracking makes you more aware of your behavior and can act as a form of accountability, even if it's only to yourself. Benefits of habit tracking. 1. It makes habits obvious and measurable. 2. It creates a visual cue that can remind you to act. 3. It is motivating to see progress. 4. It feels satisfying to record your success. 5. It helps you maintain momentum and consistency. Even when progress is slow, tracking keeps you connected to the process and encourages patience. Knowing when and when not to track a habit. Habit. Tracking works well for behaviors that are measurable and easy to record, like reading a chapter, doing 10 push-ups, or drinking a glass of water. However, it's not always practical or helpful for more abstract habits such as improving relationships or being more present. In such cases, tracking can become burdensome or reduce the quality of the habit. If tracking starts to feel like a chore or removes joy from the activity, it might be better to let it go and focus on intrinsic motivation. Use tracking when it enhances your habit, but don't let it become the habit itself. How an accountability partner can change everything. An accountability partner can significantly increase your chances of sticking to a habit. When someone else knows about your goals and is watching your behavior, you feel a social expectation to follow through. This external pressure can be more effective than relying on motivation alone. Accountability partners create a sense of responsibility. You're no longer just letting yourself down. You're letting someone else down too. This social obligation can push you to show up on the days when you don't feel like it. Whether it's a friend, coach, or group, having another person involved makes your commitment stronger and harder to break. The habit contract. A habit contract takes accountability to the next level. It is a written agreement that outlines your commitment to a specific behavior and the consequences if you fail to follow through. This contract is signed by you and witnessed by someone else, often your accountability partner. The idea is to add immediate consequences to a habit, which helps balance the mismatch between immediate gratification and long-term benefits. Knowing that there will be a penalty for failing, like paying a fine or losing a privilege, adds extra motivation to stick to the habit. A habit contract makes your intentions public and your actions accountable, raising the stakes and increasing your commitment. Chapter 6. Advanced Tactics. How to go from being merely good to being truly great? The truth about talent. When genes matter and when they don't. Your genes set the boundaries of your potential, but they don't determine the outcome. Every person is born with different strengths and weaknesses. Some people are naturally more flexible, others are more analytical. Instead of trying to overcome your limitations, it's more effective to focus on what already comes easier to you and then refine that area with practice. Success becomes more likely when you choose habits and goals that match your natural talents. Genetics cannot be ignored, but they are just a starting point. Your habits, effort, and systems still shape how far you go within those boundaries. People often waste time fighting against their nature when they could make more progress by leaning into it. How your personality influences your habits. Your personality determines what habits are more attractive and sustainable to you. Traits like introversion versus extroversion, openness to experience, and conscientiousness all affect what kind of habits you naturally prefer. Instead of trying to fit into a one-size-fits-all mold, it's smarter to design your habits around your unique personality. According to Atomic Habits, the big 5 personality traits play a key role. Openness to experience, inventive and curious, versus consistent and cautious. 2. Conscientiousness, efficient and organized, versus easygoing and careless. 3. Extroversion, outgoing and energetic versus solitary and reserved. Agreeableness, friendly and compassionate versus critical and rational. Neuroticism, sensitive and nervous versus resilient and confident. By understanding your personality, you can tailor your habits in a way that feels easier and more natural. For example, a highly extroverted person may enjoy working out in a group setting, while an introvert may prefer solo exercise. When a habit aligns with your temperament, you're far more likely to stick with it. How to find a game where the odds are in your favor. Success becomes much more achievable when you choose an environment or activity that naturally suits your abilities and interests. This is about playing a game that's designed for your skill set, not one that constantly works against it. You don't have to be the best at everything. You just need to find the field where your strengths give you a competitive advantage. In the book, James Clear suggests 1. Explore different areas until you find the one that feels right. 2. Work is easier when it aligns with your personality. 3. Look for a context in which favorable genetics and personal interests intersect. This strategy ensures you can maintain motivation over the long term and experience flow more often. The right game brings out the best in you without forcing you to pretend to be someone you're not. How to get the most out of your genes? You don't need to fight your biology. Instead, you should optimize your habits around it. Everyone has different strengths. Your job is to figure out what tasks and environments suit you best and build your habits accordingly. By aligning your systems with your natural tendencies, you can make habits feel more automatic and sustainable. The book recommends 1. Avoid one-size-fits-all solutions. Instead, personalize your habits. 2. Find the version of the habit that matches your style. 3. Adapt your strategy, not the goal. If the goal is to get fit and you hate running, try weightlifting, biking, or swimming. You will always be more consistent with a habit that feels aligned with who you are. Customization is the secret to consistency. The Goldilocks rule: how to stay motivated in life and work. Staying motivated over the long term is one of the most difficult challenges when building habits or pursuing goals. According to Atomic Habits, the best way to maintain motivation is by following the Goldilocks rule, which states that people experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are just on the edge of their current abilities. That is, the task should be neither too easy nor too hard. If it's too simple, you get bored. If it's too difficult, you get discouraged. The sweet spot lies in the middle, where the challenge is engaging but still achievable. This principle explains why some people fall off track with their goals. They either set the bar too low and lose interest, or too high and feel overwhelmed. The solution is to continuously adjust your habits and goals so they stay within that optimal zone of difficulty. As your skills improve, the challenge should increase too. This keeps the work meaningful and motivation alive. The Goldilocks Rule. The Goldilocks Rule is a core idea presented in the book to help you stay consistently motivated. It's the psychological principle that performance peaks when the level of challenge is just right. This means not too easy to feel pointless and not too hard to feel defeating. This rule explains why games, sports, and creative work can become addicting because they keep you in that flow zone where your effort is fully matched by your ability. As per the book, here's how the Goldilocks rule works. One task should be right at the edge of your current abilities. 2. Success rate should hover around 85%. This provides regular wins while still offering occasional struggle. 3. Stretching slightly beyond your current limits leads to sustained engagement. This is not just a motivational trick. It's backed by research in behavioral psychology and neuroscience. When you're in the Goldilocks zone, your brain releases dopamine as a reward for effort, which keeps you coming back. How to stay focused when you get bored working on your goals. Even when you follow the Goldilocks rule, boredom is inevitable. No matter how perfect the habit or goal, at some point, it will feel routine. The key to mastery is learning to stick with habits even when they become boring. Professionals differentiate themselves from amateurs by showing up regardless of how they feel. Atomic Habits emphasizes that the best performers aren't those who love the work all the time, but those who can tolerate boredom and keep going. Success comes to those who can consistently execute their habits even after the initial excitement fades. When motivation drops, discipline and systems must carry you forward. Tips from the book to stay focused through boredom. Anticipate the plateau of latent potential, the valley of disappointment, and push through it. To focus on repetition and refinement, not novelty. And to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. In short, to stick with your habits long term, you must accept that boredom is part of the process, and success belongs to those who can keep working anyway. The downside of creating good habits. While habits are powerful tools for improvement and efficiency, James Clear highlights a potential downside to them. They can lead to mindlessness. Once a habit becomes automatic, we stop paying attention to it. The more deeply rooted a habit is, the less we question whether it's still serving us. This can make us complacent, and even good habits can become limiting if we never revisit or upgrade them. When you do the same thing repeatedly, you might improve for a while, but then you plateau. Habits, by nature, prioritize efficiency over reflection. That's great for consistency, but dangerous when you're aiming for mastery. Becoming too comfortable with your current habits can prevent growth because you may stop exploring better options or optimizing your behavior further. To avoid this, it's important to stay consciously engaged with your habits. You must not just build good habits, you need to reflect on them, improve them, and sometimes even break them if they no longer fit your goals or identity. How to review your habits and make adjustments. To continuously grow and avoid falling into the trap of complacency, Clear recommends a practice of habit review. This involves stepping back periodically to evaluate what's working, what's not, and where you can improve. Some suggestions from the book for reviewing your habits. 1. Schedule an annual or biannual review of your habits and goals. 2. Ask yourself, what are the habits that have served me well? Which ones have stopped being useful? 3. Reflect on your identity and whether your current actions align with who you want to become. 4. Identify small tweaks that can bring large improvements. Sometimes habits just need refinement, not replacement. This reflective process keeps your habits aligned with your evolving values and ambitions. The goal is to stay proactive about your behavior rather than passive or reactive. How to break the beliefs that hold you back. Many times, it's not the external world, but our internal beliefs that prevent progress. James Clear explains that to change your habits for good, you must change your beliefs about yourself. Identity-based habits are powerful, but they can also be restrictive if those identities become outdated or inaccurate. For example, if you always believe, I'm bad with technology or I'm not a morning person, these labels become self-fulfilling prophecies. Your behavior aligns with your identity, even when it's no longer helpful. To break limiting beliefs, Clear suggests: 1. Question your identity regularly. Ask, is this still true? 2. Prove a new identity to yourself with small wins. For example, instead of saying, I'm not fit, say, I'm becoming someone who takes health seriously, and back it up with small workouts. 3. Avoid clinging to a single version of yourself. Stay flexible and allow your self-image to evolve as your habits and goals evolve. Ultimately, breaking these self-imposed limitations is essential for long-term transformation. Your identity should serve your growth, not restrict it. Conclusion: the secret to results that last. James Clear concludes Atomic Habits with a powerful idea. True behavior change is identity change. If you want results that last, your habits must be tied not just to what you want to achieve, but to who you believe you are. The key insight is this: outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits, and your habits are a reflection of your identity. You don't need to make huge transformations overnight. The most effective way to build habits that last is to focus on becoming the type of person who behaves that way consistently. For instance, don't just set a goal to write a book. Commit to becoming a writer. Don't aim to run a marathon. Become a runner. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. The more votes you cast, the more you reinforce that identity. Clear reminds readers that the journey never really ends. Good habits are never fully finished or perfect. You'll continue to fall short at times, but what matters most is that you keep showing up, casting votes, and aligning your actions with your desired identity. Ultimately, small habits don't just lead to big results, they become you. The process of building better habits is not just about doing more, it's about becoming more. More disciplined, more consistent, more aligned with your values. This is the true secret to results that last. Focus on identity, not outcomes, and let your habits naturally shape the kind of person you are proud to be.